Hello, example 4, our last problem where we're solving for x. Okay, so again, what we're going to do, we're going to factor the polynomial like we normally do, which don't forget this side must always be 0, which look at that, it's already 0, so it's already taken care of. Nice. All right, and then after that, we are going to factor and set every single factor equal to 0 to solve for x. So let's get started. So, what is the first factoring technique you should always try first before trying any other technique? Precisely, you guys. You should always factor out the GCF first. So I'm going to factor out the GCF. Let's see if there is one. Sometimes there's not. Okay, so what is the largest number that will divide into 8 and 162? That's kind of tricky. Well, if you don't know, the largest number that will divide into 8 and 162 is 2. Okay, so I'm going to divide 2 into each of these numbers and write my GCF in the very front of my parenthesis. So divide by 2, which 8x, or 8 divided by 2, well, that will give me a 4x squared. Okay, and then we're going to have 162 divided by 2. Well, 2, or negative 162 divided by 2, which negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. And 2 divided by 2 is 1, so it'd be negative 81. Okay, and then after you factor out the GCF, you always must ask yourself, can I keep factoring? You're going to look inside the parenthesis and see if you can keep factoring. Okay, so I have two numbers, and I'm subtracting, and I am able to square root each number. So which technique do you guys think we're going to use to factor the inside of the parenthesis? We are going to use a difference of squares, which is the way that you factor using a difference of squares. You're going to square root the first term, okay, which the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of x squared is x. And then I'm going to square root the second term, but don't forget, you do not include the negative when you square root the second term, so be careful. So the square root of 81, what times what will give you 81? Correct, you guys. That would be 9. Okay, and then after you square root the first and last term, all you do is add and subtract these two numbers, and then we will have reached factored form. So one time I'm going to write 2x plus the 9, and one time I'm going to write the 2x minus the 9. Okay, and don't forget, if you ever factor out the GCF, don't forget, we always must write the GCF in the very front of our final answer, because the GCF is your bestie. Don't forget about him. Okay, the GCF, you always put it at the very front. Okay, and from here, you guys, I cannot factor anymore. We have factored until we cannot factor anymore. Guys, so this right here is now our factored form. We have reached factored form. Okay, and after you reach factored form, technically you set every single factor equal to 0, which factors are things that are separated by multiplication. So there's a multiplication symbol secretly in between the 2 in this parenthesis, and then there's a multiplication symbol here. So these right here are my 3 factors this time. Now this first number is kind of weird. Technically, yes, I do bring down the 2 and set it equal to 0, but does 2 equal 0? No, it does not. So that doesn't even make sense. So we're not going to include this one when we write our factors. The only factors that you guys are going to set equal to 0 are the ones that contain x's in them. Otherwise, you're going to get something that doesn't make sense. Okay, so I'm going to set 2x plus 9 equal to 0. And then I'm also going to set 2x minus 9 equal to 0. Okay, and then after I set each of my parentheses equal to 0, I'm just going to solve for x. And we will be done. So first, the way that you move a positive 9 to the other side is by subtracting 9 on both sides, which 9 minus 9 cancels and turns to 0. 0 minus 9 is negative 9. So we're left with 2x equals negative 9. And then the way that you bring the 2 to the other side, well, the 2 and the x are secretly multiplying to each other. Okay, so I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides, which 2 divided by 2 will cancel and turn to 1. So we're left with x could equal negative 9 halves. So that could be one of our answers that if you were to substitute it back into factored form, you would get 0. Or our other option is this one right here. So I'm going to bring -9 to the other side, which the way you bring -9 over is by adding that thing on both sides, which -9 plus 9 will cancel and turn to 0. 0 plus 9 is 9. So then you're left with 2x equals 9. The way that you bring the 2 to the other side, well, these two are secretly multiplying, so the way that you bring 2 to the other side is by dividing it on both sides. Okay, which 2 divided by 2 will cancel and turn to 1, and then we're left with 9/2. So my two zeros, roots, x-intercepts, or solutions are -9/2 and +9/2. And guess what, you guys? That's it. So we make one side 0. We factor till we can't factor anymore. That's factored form. And then you just set every single factor equal to 0. That's all we're doing right now. Excellent work.